I'm a huge believer in kind of like the trial by fire. What's kind of beautiful about the slam poetry world is that it's a competition. So you go there with your story and your creativity, and you have a microphone and 3 minutes to kind of like do you. And they give these random people in the audience scorecards, usually people who have never heard a slam poem in their life, and they grade your art to your face. And I learned whether or not my story, my poetry, my performance was good from those random judges in the audience. And that is what has helped me to fine tune my work enough now to when I'm writing something, I can tell, I know, like without ever having to perform it, if that's going to land with an audience. But before I got to that point, I had to get it in front of an audience to learn those tools, to like flex those muscles. Otherwise, I was just kind of like writing into a vacuum, and I had no idea what was going to resonate or what was going to work. And so like the way that I found my flow was literally getting up week after week in front of an audience of like 200 people and just being vulnerable and being willing to take that 5.2.
Is there anything better than a trip getting ready? Nope. For a long journey where our podcast released a new epi, searching for a fade fiending, new fixation. Giving this a subscribe is the same sensation. Started with the day ones, they gave us fuel to support the season. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here for a reason. Notification bells, text some friends, all to let you know. Check your Bluetooth, connect, talking with Donato.
Welcome in, everyone. Episode 183. Does a poet know it? With our guest, SC Says. SC, what's up, man?
Man, I am roasting in Texas. That's what's up. I'm getting ready to go to an even hotter place. So I'm trying to enjoy my 95 degrees. No, I'm about to go into 100.
Okay, so let's get back to that just for a quick second here. If not in Texas, where would you rather be?
Ooh, so I actually just came back from a wedding in Maryland, and the weather there was insanely nice.
Yes.
Like just idealistic weather for like 3 days. It was amazing. So at least for right now, I would love to be back in Maryland.
Okay. I mean, I think I'm with you there. I can understand. That's around where I'm from, so I'm a little partial. But you know, they're giving it to us here in Texas. You and I asked for it. I don't know why we ended up here. I'm running from some warrants back there in Maryland. But anyway, this is enough about me. All right, so SC, could you help some people kind of understand? SC Says, that's your name, brother? Is that the government? Well, what's the story? What is SC Says?
All right. So when I first started doing poetry, I was at the Awesome Poetry Slam, and there were so many poets that had stage names. So I thought that I needed a stage name. So I go to sign up on the list, and I can't think of anything. Like nothing clever, nothing witty, nothing's coming up. Yeah. And for some reason, I thought of the first time that I'd ever heard a slam poem, which was at the University of Southern California, where I went to college. It was a guy named Javon Johnson, amazing poet, still crushing it, and insanely talented man. And so I was thinking, you know, like, okay, so that's where I saw the first poem. I'm about to do my first poem. Maybe I just like, I say that SC. And then like, I didn't like the way that like sat. Like that's not my initials are AB. That has nothing to do with me. Like what it's not clever in any way. So like, what can I add to that? And I'm a sucker for alliteration. And I just like Says, I just threw Says at the end of that. And I signed up, and I thought that, you know, like that was never going to matter or anything. But apparently my points were tied to the name that I signed up for. And when I started performing and competing like pretty religiously, all of my points were tied to that. So if I changed my stage name, I would lose all the points that I'd already gained. So I kept it. And now it's kind of like a fun homage to like the time that I was signing up for the very first time and I couldn't think of anything. And now I've created like this career out of my mind of like all of the creative thoughts that I have. So it's kind of a weird homage to the first time I heard a slam poem.
So I knew the story. Some of our listeners may not have, but I just want to say, I love it. I love it. And I hope that you are still happy with it. And it brings me to the question, isn't that kind of how it is in life? Like sometimes you want to go with the first thought or the first thing that you put on paper, or do you go back and you erase and then try again? Where do you stand with when you're creating?
Man, I I've become a huge editor of like the more that I write, the more that I edit. I would love to be the kind of poet that just the first thing that comes to mind is just insanely good, and it just like will change your life, change your whole life perspective, all of that. But I usually only get to that line after the 5th or 6th edit. So I think if I could go back, I probably would have edited the name, but I love it now, and it's become synonymous with just like my journey in this art form. But now I'm definitely leaning towards just like actually giving yourself enough time creatively to go back and edit so you can kind of fine tune the message you're trying to get to or the emotion you're trying to get to. So I'm team edit.
Essie, I'm so confused, bro. There are some of us that are out here that either wanted to be in the poetry game, were in it, and then realized, man, I got no skills. Now I didn't even get a snap. My mama right there in the front, and she didn't give me the snap. So this ain't for me. So I named this, Does a Poet Know It? Bruh, how do I know it? Can you tell me, how do I know that it's gonna flow? How do I know?
I'm a huge believer in kind of like the trial by fire. What's kind of beautiful about the slam poetry world is that it's a competition. So you go there with your story and your creativity, and you have a microphone and 3 minutes to kind of like do you. And they give these random people in the audience scorecards, usually people who have never heard a slam poem in their life, and they grade your art to your face. And I learned whether or not my story, my poetry, my performance was good from those random judges in the audience. And that is what has helped me to fine tune my work enough now to when I'm writing something, I can tell, I know, like without ever having to perform it, if that's going to land with an audience. But before I got to that point, I had to get it in front of an audience to learn those tools, to like flex those muscles. Otherwise, I was just kind of like writing into a vacuum, and I had no idea what was going to resonate or what was going to work. And so like the way that I found my flow was literally getting up week after week in front of an audience of like 200 people and just being vulnerable and being willing to take that 5.2 so that I could eventually get to the 9s and the 10s.
How were you born though? I feel like I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. At some point, did you just say, man, I'm a poet? Or did you write something because of a class and then people were like, yo, that's amazing? How did you, oh, you know what? I know what happened. You wrote a love letter to a girl.
Man.
She said, ah. She gave you the, ah. And then you were like, A Star Is Born. And you probably didn't even get the girl. But chicken or egg? What came first, Etsy? I gotta know. How did you know? How did you get to this?
That's a good question, because this wasn't the plan. My initial plan was to be an engineer. And then the plan after that was to be an actor. So I went to LA to pursue acting. I was very good at telling other people's stories. But even like when I was in middle school, I would write these like really weird but creative fantasy stories of just like being a knight or having superpowers. And I love these. These were just for fun. They were just for me. But occasionally I would like turn them in for some assignment. And like I would have a teacher like really encourage me. You need to lean into this. This is really clever. This is really good. So that planted a seed, I think, that later blossomed when I found the slam poetry community. And I saw other people being so good at telling their story in a way that got like total strangers to resonate with it. So I don't think I set out to be a poet. That was pretty much not the idea or the initiative. But I think that desire within me to tell stories was always there. I think that's what initially drew me to theater. And now I think that's definitely what drives me in my slam poetry. I want to tell stories that get people to see themselves differently or the people around them differently.
Hold on, man. We're gonna back up. You just dropped a whole lot on this. You better be glad I've got an appointment at the end of this. This could be a 2-hour one. I see there's a lot of layers to you, brother. I'm so glad. Thank you for coming on with us. Wait a minute, bro. Did you just say you want to be an engineer? So that tells me you're smart. And then you went to SC. I used to work at UCLA, but I'll allow it. I'll try not to keep looking down on you. And then why the hell are you good looking? So you're smart, and you're a poet, and you're good looking. And hold on, bro. Do you see this life-size Yoda behind you?
I do.
Right there. Bro, if you're going to be a nerd, if you're going to be a blurred, hopefully some of the listeners understand that, and you're an engineer, and you good looking, and you smart, bruh, pick a lane, brother. You can't have it all. Please tell me right now that no one wants to hang out with you. That's waiting for the other shoe to drop. Nobody likes you, right?
Yeah. No. I'm lonely all the time. But actually, fun fact: UCLA was my dream school. More than anything in my life, at 17, that was what I wanted, and I got denied. So in some weird way, UCLA is responsible for me becoming a poet, because I don't think this would have been my path.
Yeah. Oh no. For those who don't know, the UC system, they eat their own. I mean, you're a kid, you're growing up in California or not, and it's so hard. And then that's the one. That's the preeminent one. So you got everybody in the second most populous city, a very populous state, and they all want to come to LA. Oh my God, it's a challenge. So I want everyone to know, I'm taking up for USC. I don't know why, man. Rub some mud on your face, bro. Then I'll feel bad for you. But either way, I want our listeners to know it's nothing. This is not an indictment on him. We have the very best minds from around the nation. Some of these people should have been at Harvard, but they said cold Boston.
Yeah, but he took my spot at UCLA.
Yeah, that made him to UCLA. So they nudged him out. And SC is not a bad school to get into. It's an amazing school, private school. That's where Snoop Dogg sent his son.
Also true. I've seen a lot of really famous people's kids.
I'm sure you did. Let's come back to one other little thing. I didn't mention it when I was listing all this stuff. And you are artist, bruh. Like, I made the joke, and I appreciate you being a good sport, but your mind goes through so many. You're so layered. You're so broad. How do you know that you're an artist and it's not like that? I don't want to say analytical, that engineer mind taking over. How do you release yourself? Because I wonder, when it comes to art, you could go too far or you cannot go far enough and you're inhibiting yourself.
Yeah.
Boom. Tell me that, C.
Man. So I think I partially blame my analytical mind for why it is so hard for me to write new poems. Yeah. I will be easily my biggest detractor. Like I will wake up one day, very often, and just be like, dude, you've written the best poem you've ever gonna write. Just like quit, man. You've peaked. You're done. This was a hobby. It was fun for a while. Let it go. And like that. My mind will think of all the things that can go wrong or all the reasons why a poem isn't good first. So for me, anytime that I create anything new, it is a slog a lot of the times to like silence that part of me, which I do appreciate because it comes into my creativity in some ways, and allow my mind to just be free to create. The hardest part of writing a poem for me is starting, because my analytical mind will just be like, that's a dumb line. That doesn't make any sense. No one's going to relate to this before I've written down anything. And then when I do write stuff down, it goes on attack mode again. And so I have to find a huge offset to be able to create anything, because that mind is constantly thinking about like all the things that can go wrong or should have been improved in the first place.
Do you help people? Do you teach? Do you run workshops on this?
I do. Yeah.
In those workshops, are you nice guy? This is slam poetry. Someone walks up and say, hey, I see, what do you think about this? And you take it, I was like, wait, get that out of here. You slam it into the ground. Come on, that's what you do, right? It's called slam poetry.
I am so nice, man. If you're trying to get your work to be critically analyzed, that I'm probably not the best workshop for you, because I'm going to read everything that you wrote. And the first thing my mind is going to think is like, man, they took the time to write this. And like, they're putting themselves out there. They're being vulnerable. And that's awesome. We should celebrate that. We need more people like this. And so like, I'm already team like you before I've read any of your work. And so like, I'll give suggestions, but it's usually like wrapped in what I found really awesome about what you shared. And so I know I just, this is the hardest thing to do as human beings, is to like get on stage in front of a room full of strangers and share your story and like do it vulnerably. And so anybody that's like trying to get the courage to do that, that's willing to go and sit in one of my workshops, like I'm already like, I'm on there. I want to give them the encouragement that they're not getting somewhere else, that they may not get after this workshop. I want to be so in like sending energy so much to them that they leave that workshop with like a momentum that will take them out through the year. And so I am less critical, I think, and more just like, I want to just keep giving you so much encouragement and faith in yourself that you keep doing this.
Wow. Man, you got me feeling enlightened. Like there's some things I should have done and I needed encouragement from you. Okay, hey, this has just gone off the rails, SC, and I'm here for it. If you could give me a little supportive answer here. This is a girl I like, right? She's from LA. Now she got 3 kids, but I want to go to Mexico, but I'd stick around for her and 3 kids, even though she got 3 kids. What do you think, bro? Like, should I shoot my shot with her and those 3 kids, or do I go to Mexico?
I don't, man, my mind just immediately went into like analytical, and I'm like, well, let's sit down with this. Let's analyze. What does Mexico mean to you? What is the symbolism of Mexico to you in your life?
Yes, sir. Yes,
what
sir.
do the 3 kids symbolize? Because you brought that up a couple of times. I think this is an important thing that we should sit with.
No, I appreciate that. I was looking to just like throw you off with something because I hear the support. And well, that's a real scenario, and those are my kids. So I'm glad you didn't just let me run into it.
Oh, man.
Look, you just supported my relationship. Fine, I'm gonna stay with my wife. Thanks, man. You did that. You did that. Now, if you would have gone the other way, that's just how my mind works. Everyone would have judged you. Donato leaves wife, runs off to Mexico
after broadcast. Yes.
Okay, so I want to know with this, man. Do you lead with this? Like, do you walk up with people and be like, "Yo, man, I'm the author of the poetry collection Golden Brown Skin." That's what I do. Like, did you lead with that? Does your mama lead with that? Like, how does it work?
Honestly,
people?
I still struggle with remembering that I'm an author now. Like I'll like say like I'm a poet, I do this and this, and like I have a poetry, I'm an author. So no, I definitely don't lead with that. And part of it I think is just because that book was so frustrating to make.
Really?
It was 8 years of writing, and like in the back of my mind I kept thinking like, you need to make a book, you need to do a book, people keep asking for a book, and I just like would, I don't know, get over analytical about it. And so when it finally came to be, like there was this period of time where I was just like, did that really happen? I think I'm in the Matrix. I think this is some weird glitch where I have a book. Why do I have a book? That's just such a weird thing to say. So I think I'm still coming to terms with the fact that I'm an author. Even though I have so many poems, they're just like, they're now in a physical thing that you can take with you.
Okay. You gave us a little bit of glimpse of the chink in your armor earlier. You did say that, you write something down. You're not perfect in your process. You said you could write something down and you'll erase it. Listeners, I told him this was going, and those who are watching, y'all better be watching. This is a good looking dude. If you're just doing the audio, I feel bad for you. I'm messing out here. But I'm just kind of curious then. You weren't always like this, bro. Like, did you get shoved in a locker? Like, how did you get to this process? Because your poetry covers from being mixed race to social justice, mental health awareness. What? Like, you don't look like you worked hard a day in your life for anything. Like, you were Mr. Everything in every yearbook. So,
man,
did you go through some stuff? Like, where are you pulling from?
I have, an insane amount of experiences in my life that at the time, I just kind of assumed like everybody had to navigate, and like looking back, I realized no, that was hard. Like what you went through was really difficult, and like it's okay to acknowledge that. So for most of my life, I would say that you wouldn't have heard about those things from me, because like that was this idea that I had about what it meant to be a man. Like you just you suck it up, you got through the hard things in your life, and you didn't talk about it. And so I don't necessarily think that I've like gone through a heinous amount of tragedy. I just think, and I think everybody has this like this baggage that we drag around with us. And that can get lighter if we actually open it up and actually share it with someone. And so for me, yes, like there are things that I'm in Austin because I got my heart broken in LA. Like I was so heartbroken, I had to leave the entire state of California to come to Austin, where I would just be sad in Austin. I did not get into my dream school. I've had almost all of my relationships, and it was like my fault. Like it's just I'm not, I have in no way like had an easy life, but I've been very, very fortunate in so many aspects of my life. And it was just finding the way to talk about that. I think that's the only thing that has like really allowed me to stand out, is that I found a creative way to tell that story that got people to kind of see themselves in that story, or see some aspect of their life in that story. And so, yes, like I've 100% been through some things that like to this day still rock me. People I've lost, people I've been through or experienced, but I've always kind of been an optimist. Like I'm such a glass half full kind of guy. And so my motivator now is like, all right, you went through that. That was terrible. Can you learn from it? Can this now become something positive for you and maybe for somebody else?
Okay, so that brings me into you writing about mental health awareness. What are your thoughts? You just offered something, so I just want to tell you what I think I gathered. We holding stuff in because you think that's man shiza, that's man stuff right there. You got to hold that in, you got to suck that up, and sometimes that's not the best thing. Is that along the lines, or?
Yeah, I mean that's a huge part of it, at least for me, and for why I never really talked about it, my own personal like experiences with depression. But for everyone, I think, and from what I've seen, like my slam poetry, like keynote presentation, there's a big like heart of it, a core of it that's around mental health. And I talk about like other issues, other aspects of like humanity and life in that performance. But like easily the number one thing that people come and talk to me about is that poem around depression that I share. And so I have, since as someone that's like had struggled with suicide ideation and depression, it's been both healing and kind of haunting to see how many people still feel like this is something that we can't talk about or they're not allowed to bring up. And so anytime that someone hands me a microphone, I want to share at least one poem around mental health, just for the chance that there is somebody in that audience that's going to feel like they can share a little bit more about their life that wouldn't have if I hadn't done that.
All right, cut. Hey, my producer's telling me I got to go ahead and end this. SC says, this sucker just added another layer. He's out here trying to heal the world. Come on, man. SC, I'm smiling, but I'm hating, man. Come on.
Yeah. No, I'm getting that.
Golly, man. No, seriously, man. I as a person who volunteers, I'm a youth sports coach. I do a lot of volunteer work with my fraternity for families. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you say that, because there are a lot of people in a lot of need in a lot of situations. A lot of these youth, they ain't got no relationships with their dad. They don't have relationships with their mom, and they're like, "Hey, coach, can I talk to you about this?" I'm like, "Hey, what? Ron, you got nobody to talk? Really?
Yeah.
You want to talk to me? I can barely remember your last name." Like that's the kind of thing that I see when we're out talking to families. You know, I get brothers all the time. I hand out turkeys with my fraternity, and brothers come up to me, man, and like, "Hey, man, I really appreciate this. Appreciate y'all doing this, man. Things have been hard." And they unleash it, and I'm like, "Bro, we volunteering to give you a turkey. I can't give you therapy." But they got to release. And so that tells me, and I don't volunteer in that aspect or try to do what you're trying to do, but SC, I want to stay on this a little bit longer because in case they didn't hear you, there are people out there that need to let it go. So what do you say to the people who are out there who could maybe check in on a friend or do better? Because SC, you seem like a cool guy, all jokes aside, and thank you for allowing me to comedically hate. But bro, if you was my homie and I hear you said suicide ideation, I want to internalize that and be like, dang, man, what could I, like, should I have invited him over we could have gone to Santa Monica and jogged together more? Like, what could I have done? That's how I see it. But I have a superhero complex. What could you say to friends and others?
The first thing I would say is that we make those conversations so much bigger in our heads than they need to be. It is not our job to fix the people around us, but what we should lead with is just to create a space that they feel safe enough to tell you that. If you can model that kind of vulnerability first, it doesn't even have to be something heavy, but if they know that you're willing to trust them with some aspect of your life that you maybe don't share with other people, they are going to feel a lot more inclined to do the same. And it's just that sharing that could be the release of a burden enough so that gets them to want to stay. And so like the first thing I would say is just like, you just be there, like physically, emotionally, attentively. If you give that person that space, if you just help that person feel a little bit less alone, or give them the chance to share that part of their story, that can, and so many times that's enough. You know, you don't have to fix them. You don't have to like, I mean, if it is like dangerous and you're worried about their life, like, yes, absolutely. Like call someone or try to get them some help. But oftentimes we don't know. And so the only way to find out is to help create that space where they can share some of that weight with you.
And see, do you think we ever get over it? For those that are listening, you had suicide ideation, but I mean, I don't know what time in your life was that, but then you had that breakup where you had to come over here and find a buckle bunny in Texas. So do you think it could like happen again, or are we taking stuff with us that we learned in that moment and we're still like, it's a process? Maybe just so people know that vulnerability could pop up again.
This is a thing I think that most people kind of misunderstand about mental health, is that these issues can 100% pop up again because often they don't make sense. They don't depression doesn't make sense. That's your mind telling you that you have no value, you have no friends, you have no future. Your mind telling you this stuff that you can literally be talking to a friend and it's telling you have no one. Like it doesn't make sense. And because it doesn't make sense, you can go through it, you can learn from it, you can survive it, and years down the road, it can still pop up again for you. It might be different and you might have the tool set now to understand it and realize it and better deal with it, but it can still pop up again. For me personally, I get these pretty heavy depressive episodes at least once a year. Where like it doesn't, I'll wake up, I'll feel heavy, I feel like I need to just weep. There's nothing wrong, literally nothing in my life that is going in a way that makes me like this, makes these emotions make any kind of sense. And yet it's a reality for me and I'll have to like navigate that. I know my own like healthy coping mechanisms where I'll call a friend, I'll call a family member, I'll go for a walk or a long drive. I know what works best for me. And hopefully a lot of people now, since we're making this conversation a lot more common, they're learning their coping mechanisms, their healthy coping mechanisms for them. But I think the biggest misconception is like, oh yeah, you were suicidal when you were 25, but you're good now, right? Like you're done with that. That doesn't happen to you anymore. And like, yeah, they may not be necessarily suicidal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that some of those like thought patterns or emotions won't come up again for them, especially if something triggered them in the first place and something like that triggers them again. Wow.
I didn't know we were going to do this.
I didn't know we were getting that deep either.
That felt good. That felt good because I know there are people that want to talk and they don't talk.
Yeah.
They want to talk. They should talk. So hopefully we got that to a place, bro. We may have to come back. That's like a whole episode right there.
That's a whole lane we got to explore.
Yeah. I'm gonna go somewhere else reluctantly because I feel like I stayed on that. All right, man. When people find out you're a poet, you at the barbershop, Roscoe comes up to you and be like, "Yo, SC, my man said you nice with the words. I'm about to get married. Could you write the proposal? And oh, by the way, go ahead and hook a brother up with some vows when that time happens too." Like, does that happen? Hey man, go ahead. You talk. You the poet. Like y'all in Vegas, and everybody's like, yo, SC, you got this. Does that happen?
It has happened before. Oh. Yes. And it was a friend that was getting married that wanted me to perform a poem for the two of them that I knew pretty well. So it wasn't like that weird of a request. But I do get asked occasionally for something like important like that. Conferences weirdly also are like, can you write a poem for like our health insurance rep, sales rep? I'm like, yeah, sure. Depending on how that paycheck looks, we can get you a poem.
Plumbers United, we want you at sea.
Yo, I could write a mean plumbing poem. I think there are so many metaphors I can make out of a plumbing poem.
Well, is that something to only be played after dark? Where are you going with that?
I don't know yet. I'll get an idea and I have no idea where that poem is going to go. But now I like
it. Okay, so I gotta know, when people like you are always creating, do y'all take vacations from creating? Like, should you go to Cabo and just rest your mind and say to yourself, let me just breathe, relax, instead of always trying to create? Because I feel like there's stress always trying to create.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Great question, because I'm kind of two opinions on this. For me personally, I think it is so hard for me to create on a vacation or to take a creative vacation, because like I get inspired by so many random things all the time. That being said, writer's block has become like an undesired vacation for me pretty often, actually, in my poetry career, which sucks. So I take frequent creative vacations, not because I want to, but because my mind is like, I got nothing for you, man. Good luck. But I don't know. In a weird way, those are even more valuable than the times I am creating, because it does allow me to kind of stop, to pause. Maybe that is my mind like forcing me to take a creative vacation so that I can come back on the other side of it and create something that I would have never thought of otherwise. I mean, I've some of my favorite poems I wrote after not having written a poem in 3 months, where I was convinced at that point, dude, you're never going to write anything again. Like, you've already created all the things you're going to create. You're done now. And then I would create something that I was so proud of. And so I have a weird love-hate relationship for the undesired vacation of writer's block.
Okay. I was going to ask this. It's now coming up higher on the list. Do you have a favorite work right now? Like, when you step back, that's the mic drop. It's like, yo, that was my finest moment right there. And I don't pull it out too often, but that's the one. Like, do you have one in your mind that's like, that's my best stuff right there? It was the best one ever. Just curious, which one is that?
It changes all the time. Right now, it's like right between two. I would say that the top one is one I call Fast, around prejudice, and then it's like right underneath it, and it's actually now an older poem. I wrote it a few years ago, but it's about my dad, my relation to my dad. That poem, there are times I'll perform it, and I still tear up about it. And so I'm proud of how it turned out, but I'm also proud of like I got to share that with my dad. We got to bond over that poem. It just means so much to me.
And that's cool. Wow. Hey, you just gave our Google fingers. I'm gonna get to this at the end. We'll hit it again. Hey, how would we find some of your works? Like, I made the joke, Google, YouTube. How can we go find some of this work, aside from he is an author? So, there is a plug coming later. How can
Yeah, if you were so
There it
inclined.
There it is.
I do have a poetry collection called Golden Brown Skin that you can find wherever you get your books. No, if you Google SC Says, I should be the first thing that pops up. My website has a lot of my work on there. You can like just go to projects and find that. Also, YouTube has a ton of my work, thanks to Right About Now. They're doing incredible work and just getting poets videos, like really high quality videos, and getting them out there and getting them a lot of traction. So that's also another way that you can find some of my work. And then I do have some of my work on my Instagram as well, which is at SC Says.
Okay. Yo, what art is next? I mean, you're an artist. You're a fancy art dude. Like, you know what I mean? Is there something else? Like, did this get you to a point where you was like, yeah, I'm a creator? And then, you was at a party, sipped on a little too much wine and said yes, and ended up at a paint party a while because you said you was going to do it. And now you realize, I like painting too. Is there anything else that has kind of come out that you kind of thought of?
So if I could sing, I'd be doing so. My whole life would be different. But I would love to incorporate some kind of musicality into my poetry at some point. Right now, I'm thinking that's probably going to be just like a percussive element to it. But I'm really into technology. I love cool, innovative technology. And I think what is coming out now is going to change the way that we tell stories in the future. I think there's a way that technology can really help us facilitate better storytelling. And I'm like thinking specifically about virtual reality. I've sat in some like virtual reality experiences where you're literally put into the position of somebody else. You're literally looking at the world through somebody else's eyes. And I think that's going to be able to like really transform somebody's perspective through like really great, meaningful, emotional storytelling. And so in a weird way, I kind of want technology to be the next art form, or like at least an art form that I incorporate into my poetry that allows people to really kind of like experience the story in a way that just hasn't been possible before.
Is this a superpower that you try to keep away from people? I know I asked you, do you lead with it? But do you sometimes feel like you want to keep this to yourself? That it's kind of a different path of my life, and I don't want it out on Front Street. So when we're swiping, I don't know, swipe left, swipe. I've been with this girl for a long time, so I don't even know the app. So I'm gonna just say swipe and left, whatever that means. So when you're swiping, you get, poetry. Essie's a poet. I'd be interested. Do you? Is this something that you hide?
No, and mainly because now it is the main profession. It's like how I make my living. So there are times where I'm where I'm at because I'm a poet. Physically, like I'm at the conference because I'm a poet. I'm like at the school because I'm doing poetry. So there are times where I just like that it wouldn't make sense to hide. But even like in my everyday life, when I'm meeting somebody new at like a bar or like at like some kind of social gathering, it is what I say that I do because it is my full-time like profession. But there's a way that I have to like deliver it where I don't get like 100 questions like, I've never heard of slam poetry. What is spoken word? Like how do you like do this and this and this? And so like I typically am like, I'm a keynote artist, right? Which could mean like so many things. And so like that usually is enough to like, or it sounds professional enough for them to be like, okay. And like, usually they don't ask any additional questions, or like if we have time and if they're curious, I'll be like, okay, can you explain? But I'll typically say that I'm a keynote artist. And then if they really want to know, then I like let them know that I use spoken word to like help educate.
Great. I'm glad you do that. Hey, what do your peers say about you? I've been to a Right About Now event. What do people say that know you about you?
That's a good question. To my face, I do think that, and I'm really proud of this. I do think that I have created a name enough for myself in the poetry world that I never thought this would happen to me, but I have like newer voices come up and they tell me like, I watched your videos on YouTube. You're a big reason why I do poetry now.
Whoa.
That feels amazing, because I still vividly remember being that guy in the audience and being like, hey, I love your poetry. Like, how did you get started? Like, where do you get your ideas from? I had all the questions, right? And now like I have someone doing the same thing to me. That feels really cool. So I do feel like I've made enough of a name for myself in the slam poetry community, so that people like, they know of my work. They've probably seen some of it. And like, they're just like, I think a style of writing and like things that I typically talk about. And so I've also cultivated a sense of like, oh, that's an SC poem. That's probably going to be about kindness or like growing up mixed race or like, like something like that. So I do think that people hopefully have like a respect for the work that I like and the content that I produce. I think that there has now become like a sense of weight to an SC Says poem that I'm really proud to like have helped build over these years. But they also probably say I'm like an asshole. I don't know.
I didn't want to just do this, but this is how I found out about you. But I got to ask the question, what other skills you got? What else would we be surprised to know? Like, are you an amazing flautist like Andre 3000? What are the other things that you kind of wish people did know about?
I really wish I had a great answer for this. I don't know. I specifically think that I spend most of my time, if not like writing or creating poetry, than doing like presentations and keynotes. There is not like another skill that I have been currently trying to develop outside of just being a better presenter and storyteller. And so that's kind of my whole MO right now, is that like I'm that poet. I'm that guy that tells stories and like uses them to kind of deliver a message.
Oh no, you got to stay locked in. I mean, like you said, this is the profession.
I mean, if watching anime is a skill set, then yeah, man, I'm probably Michelangelo of watching anime.
I think we're in the middle of an anime renaissance, man.
There's so much good content out there right now.
I know. I think we've got new fans, and I'm seeing production. I'm seeing stuff pop up. Well, my algorithm is leading me to it also. But I think we're in it's a good place right now to welcome others for it to grow. Yeah. I want to ask two final questions. The time has gotten away. This has been fun, man. So
this has been such a good time
coming in. I kind of knew, but until we get in here and we start chopping it up, I didn't know. But man, you're awesome. I gotta know. I used to live in Maryland, man, and where I was, Aberdeen, Maryland. I used to go to Philly all the time. I just bought a Mustang. So your boy was on the road. And in Philly, the slam poetry, the vibe, the amount of clubs, I think it's probably the best city. But I want to get you in some hot water here, and I want to hear from you. What's the best poetry city in the United States of America?
Man, you're gonna do this to me?
Yes, I am. I told you it was gonna be nice, but I'm a liar. And I've been hitting you with some hard stuff.
All right. If we're just going by trophies, Slamageddon outside of out of Baltimore, I think is where Slamageddon is out of. They have just been cleaning shop on the poetry circuit. I mean, if you are bouting against Slamageddon, you kind of are like, all right, I'm cool with second place. I'm good.
Wow.
Like they're creatively, it's just the poets that are coming out of there and the things that they're working on are just like they're next level. And they're professionally done, they're professionally performed, the cadence, their group pieces are insanely good. So, and they've been winning a lot. And so now there's a lot of scenes that are kind of trying to sound like Baltimore. Texas, though, I think, has some of the most dynamic poets where when you see a Texas poet go on stage, you have no idea what they could hit you with. They could hit you with a laundry list of all the things in their fridge and somehow relate that to being about like depression and anxiety. They can hit you with one of my favorite poems of all time by Danny Strack. He's like describing 3D movies and how you need a blue lens and a red lens. You need both. And it's a political poem about like our division in the politics right now. It is brilliant. So I think like I think the caliber and everything in Texas is top notch, if not the best. But I also think like the dynamism of what we create in Texas is just so broad. You have no idea what it's going to be. You just know that it's going to be good. And so like obviously I'm biased. I think like Houston, Austin, Dallas, easily some of the best poets in the world, but definitely in the country.
Oh, nothing wrong. I mean, Michael Jordan, some people, he's their GOAT. He's not mine. But he's from a little small town, Wilmington, North Carolina. You ain't never heard of it. Have you, SC?
Until I watched, what was it? His Last Dance.
Yep. I know, right? And my mom's from right around there. So, yeah, but I mean, so anyone who wants to challenge you on that, because you said it with your chest, appreciate you doing that. You ain't scared, bro. But, I mean, talent can come from anywhere. LeBron is from Akron, Ohio. That ain't nothing. And I want anybody, please get in the comments and tell me that you ain't from Akron and you've gone there, because I'm gonna guarantee you have.
Yeah, and like what's so amazing is that these poets are hungry, right? I know a poet who personally drives an hour each way to go to a poetry slam to go compete. Like they are so dedicated to this art form and to being good in it. And because you have that like competitive aspect, poets are just getting better and better and better, and the poetry is getting better and the shows are getting better. And so I'm so excited to be a part of this world and this art form, because it's growing and it is evolving in such a fast pace. And there are so many new voices that are coming through and just like racking shop. And I'm really excited to see what these next like 5 years are going to look for slam poetry.
When you said you were going to come on with me, I always say, hey, if there's something you want to cover, let me know. And a lot of times people don't, which is cool for me and my artistry. But were there things you thought of as, man, I can't wait to talk about this. I'm about to drop this. Was there something you wanted to get out? You wanted to talk about that I didn't ask?
Not like specifically. I think there are lanes that we've already kind of like we cracked the surface on that I think we could easy deep dive. But I mean, I'm always anytime that I'm doing something like this or I'm performing, I want to at least have some moments where we talk about mental health, and we really got to dive into that for a bit in our discussion today. I'm so grateful for that, man. I like sincerely. I know like it can be kind of a heavy thing, and like it's not exactly like the glamorous blockbuster thing that a lot of people want to go and see and watch and spend time on, but it is so necessary. So I'm grateful for you for this avenue to really get to dive into something that I'm really passionate about.
No, it felt good to talk about, and I broke that third wall. I wanted people to understand that fourth wall. I wanted people to understand it's okay to reach out to a friend. You want to talk about it, and I think we may have been able to help someone. Hopefully,
I hope so.
I hope we helped a bunch of people. Hey, SC, let's go over. I want to know where I can get that book. That is an amazing opportunity for me to make my wife smile. So I'm going on here. I'm putting this out into the ether. She don't listen to my stuff anyway, so I'm gonna get her that book, man. I'm gonna get her your book. So thank you for that. But one, where can I get the book, and how can we follow? And I think you said you even have a website.
I do. So you can actually get the book on my website. Just go to scsayspoetry.com. It's under the link called Poetry Collection. And I don't know if you're able to include any links, but I'll share a link with Donato where you can just go directly to buy the book. And then if you want to kind of follow any of my poetry or this crazy, ridiculous journey that I'm on, at SC Says on pretty much everything should get you connected to me.
I got it. I'll include it, and that'll be there. It'll be right under the bio. Awesome. So they get to see some stuff. and then they're gonna be like, oh yeah, gotta go get that. So we want them to flow right into it. I mean, come on, people, you need to have something on your bookshelf. You ain't gotta read it, but you want people to
does
know
look good
you got something on your bookshelf.
Yeah. You want to look learned. It's a good book cover.
Yes, you do. SC, you haven't heard the last of me, brother. That's a threat. I need you to know.
Let's do this again.
Was fun. You got great energy. You seem like a cool cat. I'm sorry you're lonely. If I wasn't booed up and with all these kids that you made me stay with, bro, we be hanging out when you're in town. I want you to know that. Sheesh, I'll be your wingman because I know you be fighting them off. I'll be like, hey, my man, be tight right now. He good. Y'all get on, get the bricks. See, you know what I'm saying? I'll steal them away for you. But hey, this was good. Thanks for coming on.
Anytime. This was so much fun. I sincerely appreciate this, man. You've got a great platform. Yes, amazing questions. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And you have a great rest of the night.
Yeah, you as well. Take care, y'all.